All right, Leviticus chapter 16. Ironically, we're in Acharei Mot, which means after the death. After the death of. And this is talking about the death of Aaron's sons, Nadav and Abihu. After the death, God gives the explanation of how to do Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Acharei Mot. So, in Leviticus chapter 16, now the Lord spoke to Moshe after the death, Acharei Mot, of the two sons of Aharon, when they had approached the face of the Lord and died. So, right before this, chapter 16, Leviticus, and chapter 15, it talks about this event. That Nadav and Abihu got these fire pans, these things, got their fire pans and put fire in the pan, these hot coals, and then got some weird incense that they weren't supposed to have, threw it on the coals, but it was the wrong incense, it was the wrong smell. And so God killed them because they went before, it says presence, that's panim, face. They went right into the face of God because they wanted to. And so God killed them, just like that. So then God says, okay, well, you can't do that. Here's the ground rules for the game. Here's how it works. And so he told them how it works, and he gave them the laws for Yom Kippur. The Lord said to Moshe, verse 2, tell your brother Aharon that he shall not enter at any time, just whenever you want, into the holy place inside the veil, before the covering which is on the ark, or he die. For I will appear in the cloud over the covering being what they call the mercy seat on top of the ark. I will appear above the mercy seat, above the covering, in between the cherubim, the angels. But in order to go before the ark, what do you have to have? You have to have incense. That's what he's saying. Don't just walk in whenever you want. You have to go in with incense. He shall take a fire pan, we're skipping to verse 12. He shall take a fire pan full of coals of fire from upon the altar before the Lord, and 2 handfuls of finely ground sweet incense, and bring inside the veil. You shall put the incense on the fire before the Lord, that the cloud of incense will fill what it says is mercy seat, but it doesn't say mercy seat in Hebrew. It says covering, Kippur, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, Kipporat. It's called the Kipporat, which is the covering or atonement. That's what the mercy seat is. So the cloud may cover that Kipporat that is on the testimony, so he not die. So anyway, that's what the priest looks like when he's carrying the fire pan. Now, in the passage of Yom Kippur, it doesn't say this. It doesn't say, step 1, bring incense. Step 2, bring the blood of the bull. Step 3, bring the blood of the goat. It doesn't say that, but that's what it was. And it's written about in the Mishnah and the Talmud really, really, really clearly. So step 1 is incense. Step 2 is the blood of the bull. Step 3 is the blood of the goat. So Yom Kippur is not just killing a goat and then letting a goat go free. That's not Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is first incense. First is incense, then the blood of the bull, and then the blood of the goat. Now, in chapter 10 of Leviticus, it's talking about Nadav and Abihu. The sons of Aharon took their respective fire pans, machtot. This is called a machtah. Machtah. In the book of Revelation, when it says that the angels poured out their, some say vials, some say bowls. You've read that, yes? You look like you don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. Some translations say vials, some say bowls, some say cups. Well, it's this. It's a machtah. It's a fire pan. Remember, the priests are pictures of angels. And the angels, pictured by the priests, carried fire pans. Well, in the book of Revelation, during the birth pains, they pour those out. What are they pouring out from the fire pans? Fire. Coals, hot coals. So, Nadav and Abihu took their respective machtot, and after putting coals of fire in them, placed incense on it and offered weird, strange, not good, I'm going to say authorized, but I don't know how else to say it. Unauthorized, unsanctioned, unkosher, I like that. Fire before the Lord. Unkosher fire before the Lord, which he had not charged them. And fire came out from the face of the Lord and ate him up. Now in Leviticus 16, 1 and 2, it says, Now the Lord spoke to Moshe after the death of the two sons, when they approached the face of the Lord and died. And the Lord said to Moshe, Tell your brother Aaron he can't come in at any time of the holy one. Now, the reason he said the, quote, laws for Yom Kippur is because Acharei Mot, after the death of Nadav and Abihu. So it's like a doctor who says, don't go outside in the rain barefoot, or you'll get pneumonia and die. Pretty good doctor. But what about if somebody goes outside and barefoot and they catch pneumonia and they die, and then his brother is going to go outside barefoot in the rain? What would a good doctor say? Look at what your brother did. Don't be stupid. You can't do that. Here's what you do. Put your shoes on, put your socks on, put your shoes on. That's a really good doctor. And that's what the rabbis compare this to. That because Nadav and Abihu died, God, as a good doctor, said, look at your brothers. Aaron, here's the way you do it. And that's why he gave the laws for Yom Kippur. Does that make sense? So, the laws for Yom Kippur was God love. God showing love. And it's all about, it doesn't read this way, but it's all about this. The whole thing is about this. Not the fire, the incense. The incense. It's all about the incense. Because that's what Nadav and Abihu did wrong. They put some weird, unauthorized, unsanctioned, unkosher fire in that fire pan, put the incense on it, and walked in front of God like, we're doing this because we can do this. And zot, God burned them up. Now this is what Yom Kippur looked like in the tabernacle. The high priest walked over to this side of the two curtains. There's like a little hallway between the veils, and then turned, came around, and then into the Holy of Holies, and look at the ark. It's not like in the movies. In the movies, it's the wrong shape. It's all wrong. And in the movies, the staves go the long way. But it says very clearly in Chronicles that the poles could be seen here. That they went this way. They went from the veil back. Right? So, when you read about what the high priest had to do, it's kind of confusing. Because what it says is, this is an incense holder, very beautiful. It has a little bell on the top. And here's the machtah. And it says, he shall take 2 handfuls of incense, put them on the fire in the machtah, and go into the holy place. Right? So he's carrying incense in this holder, and he's carrying the machtah, and he has to go through this hallway, and then over here, and put all of that in front of the ark, in between the staves, in between the poles, without tripping and falling. And then he takes the incense and puts it on the fire pan, and it fills the Holy of Holies with cloud. And that's what this whole day is about. It's the cloud of incense. The cloud of incense. So that's what we're going to be talking about. The cloud of incense. Now, when we talk about the cloud of glory, every believer says the same thing about the cloud of glory. They followed it in the wilderness. It provided direction, right? And that if you follow the cloud of God's Spirit, you'll be fine. Yes? Yes. But that's not all the Bible says about the cloud, the quote, cloud of glory. There's a lot more to it. And the first picture of that is this. It's the machtah with the fire in it and the incense that hits it and fills up the Holy of Holies. That is the cloud of glory. That is the cloud of glory. But think about what's in that machtah. What's in the machtah? Fire and smoke. Right? Fire and smoke. This machtah is a little picture of God's presence, God's face, God's throne, God's, they call it Shekinah. It's not Shekinah. It's Shekhinah. It means sitting, presence. So the machtah and the fire and the smoke is a picture of God showing up. There he is. I can see him. Where did it say that God would show up? On top of the kaporet. On top of the, quote, mercy seat. On top of the covering, the kaporet. Now, here's what it says in Hebrew. In verse 2. For I will appear over the ark cover in a cloud. I will appear over the kaporet in a cloud. In Hebrew, ki be'anan er'e al hakaporet. Ki, for, be'anan, in a cloud, er'e, I will appear, I will be seen, al hakaporet, on top of, on the kaporet, the covering. So, his cloud, quote, cloud of glory on the kaporet is pictured by the machtah with the fire and the incense in it. And there's God's presence. So we're going to talk about this cloud. Now the word cloud, anan in Hebrew, actually it's, try to say this. Anan. Anan. Try it? Anan. Oh, no. Anan. You got to pop it in the back of your throat. Anan. The word Gaza, how many missiles did you say? 150 missiles were sent from Gaza today into Israel. 150 from Gaza. It's not Gaza. There's no such word as Gaza. I have to drink water to do this. It's Gaza.
When did this happen?
Gaza. Today. Gaza. Also, it's not Sodom and Gomorrah. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. Gomorrah. Try it. Oh. You gotta pop it. All right, so the word for cloud is anan. And anan means to cover, to gather clouds, to act covertly, to act secretly. To act secretly. And therefore to use hidden or secret arts, which is magic or sorcery. Now, here's what believers don't know about the glory cloud. And this is what's so important about it. God is supposed to be hidden. There's stuff we are not supposed to know. We are not. But if we study the pictures, we'll know everything we're supposed to know. Because the pictures are hidden. Remember when we did the Haggadah at Passover? And we read, I do this in the name of all Israel, in the name of the hidden and the concealed. Remember that? Yes. Do you remember that? For the unity of all of Israel? I do this in the name of the hidden and the concealed, in the name of all Israel. And it did that for all the pictures, almost all the pictures. Well, that's the pictures. They're hidden and concealed. Because God is hidden and concealed. And He's supposed to be. Because if he wasn't, we'd be like Nadav and Abihu, who would burn up. Now, Anan, wait, let me say it this way. We are supposed to approach the cloud. We are not supposed to get near that cloud. We are supposed to approach the cloud. We are not supposed to get near that cloud. Question is, what cloud?
The cloud of glory.
We're supposed to, yeah, but which one? I told you the Machtah is a picture of the cloud of glory, right? We're supposed to approach the picture. The Machtah, the cloud of glory, the Machtah. We are not supposed to come to the real thing. And I don't care what you say. And I've done the research so I can say this. I don't care what you tell me about, oh, the cloud of glory showed up when we were worshiping. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I've watched all the videos. It's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Because the cloud of glory is not supposed to show up. That's God's, I'm going to show you later, that's God's aloneness. And I'm going to show this to you. It's not supposed to show up. But we are supposed to approach the pictures, the little pictures of that real thing. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's secret, it's hidden, it's covert. Now the word Anan, spelled slightly differently in the vowels, slightly different, means a cloud, as a covering, veiled, something veiling the sky. Now this is really cool. The name Ananya is Anan Yah. Yah being the name of God, right? Yahweh. Ananya. Ananya. So Ananya, which is also written like this in the Bible, Ananiah. Who is that in the Bible? Who do we know that's Ananiah? And Anania and Sapphira. Right. Ananias and Sapphira. Good guys or bad guys? Really bad guys. And guess what happened to them? Same thing that happened to Nadav and Abihu. Dropped down dead. You know why? It says because they lied to the Holy Spirit, but really it's because they did the same thing that Nadav and Abihu did. They said, we're going to go up in front of God. We don't care. We're going to do what we want. It's basically the same thing. So this word Ananya means whom Yah covers. Or, and I like this, the cloud of Yah. I like that. The cloud of Yah. So I got a couple pictures of clouds here. Kind of glory cloudish, sort of, right? Got fire and smoke together. Fire and darkness. Fire and darkness. Fire on the rim of the cloud and darkness. Let's say it again. The Machtah, what does it have in it? Fire and smoke. Fire and smoke. That is God's cloud. Fire and smoke. Now, here's what we do know. Here's what everybody knows. That the cloud is where God is. We know Exodus 13, 21 through 22, it says that God showed up in a pillar of fire at night and a pillar of cloud during the day. So here he is as a pillar of, his spirit is a pillar of fire. Here's Israel, here's the Egyptians. It was a pillar of fire at night, pillar of smoke during the day, and it separated the two so they couldn't approach each other, right? And then they followed it from Sukkot to Etam to Sukkot to Pitom, right? So they go from one camp to another at the Reed Sea, following this giant pillar of fire and smoke. When is it fire? When is it fire? At night. When is it smoke? So it depends on when it is. It's in that Machtah is what? Fire and smoke. So it depends on when it is. If it's dark, it's fire. If it's light, it's smoke. It's both. Let's go to Exodus 14. Here's something I need you to see in order to understand this. In order to understand the picture that God is showing us. Yeah, that's right. I mean, every day we get to see a picture of God's, quote, glory cloud when we see the sunset in the clouds. Every day, if it's cloudy. That's right. Okay, Exodus 14, 19 through 20. This is important. Leviticus 14, 19 through 20. The angel of God who had been going before the camp of Israel moved and went. It doesn't say went. You know what it says? Holech. Walked. Walked. It does not say went. It says walked. Walked behind them, and the pillar of cloud walked from before them and stood behind them. So it walked around them and then stood. In other words, the pillar is like a person, that it can walk. It can stand and it can walk. Yes? So it's much more, it's not as generic as, oh, we're following the glory cloud. It's not like that. Like, ooh, look at that tornado. There it goes. It's not like that. It walked. In other words, it's a man. And that's what God is trying to communicate there. In same chapter 14, verse 24. It came about at the morning watch that the Lord looked down on the army of the Egyptians through or in the pillar of fire and cloud and brought the army of Egyptians into confusion. So now you have God looking in or through the pillar of fire and cloud. Therefore, where is God? He's in the pillar of fire or cloud. And he's looking like through it at the Egyptians. Make sense? So the picture is this. It's pretty simple. If you see that fire and cloud coming, God's going to be seen in it. Yes? That makes sense? Very, very simple. And that's what the verse says. That's what the verse says. It says, I'll do that one. For I will appear over the cover, the ark cover, in a cloud. I will be seen. I will appear. Where will he appear? In the cloud, in the pillar, cloud of fire. He'll be seen in that, we'll call it the glory cloud. I hate that phrase for obvious reasons now, but I'm going to say it anyway. He'll be seen in the glory cloud. This is not a small thing. This is a huge thing in Judaism. It's huge. Let's go to Exodus chapter 40. Exodus chapter 19 at Shavuot, which we're coming up to in about 5 weeks. 5.5 weeks. Exodus 19. This is at Shavuot. In verse 19, when the sound of the shofar grew louder and louder, Moshe spoke and God answered him with voices. Why do I have that? Okay, next verse 20. And the Lord came down on Mount Sinai on the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moshe to the top. Well, that's not what I did here. It's the one before, verse 18. Now Mount Sinai was all in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire. So there's fire and smoke. Therefore, God shows up. It's that simple. You see fire and smoke in the Bible? That's where God can be seen. Right. I will appear. Seen, appear over the ark cover in a cloud. So that's why he came to Mount Sinai in fire and smoke. Mount Sinai was all in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and its smoke ascended like the smoke of a blast furnace, and the whole mountain quaked violently. Okay. And then Moshe entered. What did Moshe enter? The smoke and the fire. He entered into it. Right, he entered into God's presence. All right, Exodus chapter 20, verse 21. hear you. So the people stood at a distance while Moshe approached the thick cloud where God was. When it says approached, it means went into. He went into the smoke. What did you say? I couldn't hear you.
It reminded me of the furnace with 3
Oh, yeah, very good. I didn't even think of that. When Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah went into the furnace, and Yeshua showed up there, and they're in the middle of the furnace, fire and smoke, and there's God, and there's Yeshua with them. Yeah, that's very good. I didn't even think of that. All right, Leviticus. No. Exodus chapter 40. Exodus 40. Verse 34. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the Mishkan. Where's the cloud? No. Covered the tent of meeting. Covered. That means it's on top of it. So the cloud's on top, and inside is fire. Brightness. And on top is cloud or smoke. Same thing. And Moshe was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled on top of it. And the glory of the Lord filled it. So you got fire on the inside and cloud on top. Just like the machteh. Just like the fire pan. You put fire of coals in it and cloud on top of it. Yes? Same exact picture. And Moshe was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled on it and the glory of the Lord filled. So picture this. Picture the glory cloud as the priest walking with the machteh, and there's Israel following. Isn't that cool? So when we say, you want to follow the glory of the Lord, follow the glory cloud, you're following the priest carrying the machteh into the presence of God. Isn't that beautiful? Verse 36. And throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the Mishkan, the sons of Israel would go out. And if the cloud was not taken up, then they didn't go out until the day when it was taken up. And throughout all their journeys, the cloud of the Lord was on the Mishkan by day, and there was fire in it by night in the sight of all the house of Israel. Like a giant machteh, like a giant fire pan. All right, let's go to Leviticus 16, back to the Torah portion that we're looking at.
That scripture, Revelation, his face was like fire. So the cloud looking at fire, it's just like his face right there with him.
Leviticus 16:13. And he shall put the incense on the fire in front of the Lord, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat that is on the ark of the Mishkan, lest he die. Guys, you can't just start talking to me. You have to raise your hand, get my attention, so I can stop, and you can say what you need to say, or else I can't hear you.
You understand? But you said that you're not totally 100% here today.
That's not what it is. It's a point of order. You need to get my attention so I can stop and you can say what you need to say. If you just say stuff, I'm not going to hear it, I can't respond to it, and I can't fell with you and be all happy about it. Leviticus 16:13. You shall put the incense on the fire in front of the Lord. Where is the incense? Where? Say it louder. Say that. Is that you? You're saying it. On the fire. Thank you, Ruth. On the fire. Where's the incense? On the fire. Where's the fire? In the fire pan, in the machteh. Where's the machteh? In the hands of the priest. Now, when we get to verse 13, he has set the fire pan down on the ground in between the poles. All right? So now it's on the ground. The fire pan's on the ground. He takes the incense, puts it on the fire, and it fills the room. It fills the throne room of God. All right, let's go to Numbers 11. What we're looking at right now is God's cloud and how it fills the Mishkan. But basically, that's where God is. We're looking at that's where God is. What is it? Numbers 11. Numbers 11:25. The Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to him, and he took of the Spirit who was upon him and placed it upon the 70 elders. And it came about when the Spirit rested upon them that they prophesied. So God came down in what? The cloud. He came down to earth in the cloud. That's how God shows up, with the cloud. Chapter 16, number 16. (42). It came about, however, when the congregation had assembled against Moshe and Aharon, that they turned toward the tent of meeting, and look, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Now this is the same word. The glory of the Lord appeared, was seen. God said, I will appear in a cloud. So here, the glory cloud showed up. That means God appeared. Could they see God?
No.
What did they see? A cloud. That's what God looks like. Fire and smoke. That's what God looks like. Yes.
We've been having a lot of tornadoes and a lot of fires all over the United States. And that one picture Jim and I were discussing, it was darkness in one and then the lightning, and then you can see the fire.
Yeah. I'm talking about the fires and tornadoes all over, and they are a picture. They are a picture of God
One
showing
of
up.
them was exactly like that.
Yeah. With the darkness and the fire.
Real dark, and you can see the lightning, and then the fire started.
That is very definitely a picture. You know, if you were in a regular church, you know, where that conversation would go on. Yes, that's what's happening right now in America. That means God's doing it. God is judging. That's not true. It's a picture. It's a wonderful thing. That's exactly right. I like that. Okay, Deuteronomy 31. Deuteronomy 31. Verse 15. The Lord appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, and the pillar of cloud stood at the doorway of the tent. So the Lord appeared. This is also the same word, ereh, or yireh. I will appear over the ark cover in the cloud. And here he says that God appeared in the form of the cloud. 1 Kings 8. 1 Kings 8. Verse 12. This is when the temple is built and Solomon is dedicating the temple. And it says in verse 12, Shlomo said, the Lord has said that he would dwell in the thick cloud. Where is God? In the cloud. But we built you a big house anyway. That's what he's saying. God said he'd dwell in the cloud, but we built him a house anyway. So, the whole point of this is the cloud is where God is. That's all this is about.
You know what, mine says he will dwell in the thick darkness.
It does not say darkness in Hebrew. That's choshech. In Hebrew, it's aman, which is cloud. We'll dwell in a thick cloud. Aman. Okay. Now that's one thing about the cloud. Now here's the one that everybody knows, but nobody understands. This is the one that everybody talks about, but nobody really understands it because they don't go from, let's follow the glory cloud. Wherever the glory cloud is, that's where we're going to go. But they never take it any farther to really understand why God showed up in a cloud. Why? Why didn't he show up in the form of a sandal? God is walking. I can see a sandal. Let's follow the sandal of God. But it's a cloud. I mean, why? It makes no sense. Unless you understand the machteh and the priest and the fire pan with coals of fire and all that. It makes no sense. Now, let's talk about God giving direction. We already looked at Exodus 14, 19 through 20, that it says the pillar of cloud walked and then stood. In Solomon's temple, how many pillars were there? 2. Good. What were their names? Yachin and Boaz. Yachin and Boaz. Strength and right hand. There's 2 pillars. 2 pillars. Why do you think there's 2 pillars? Boaz. Boaz. Why do you think there's 2? Why do you think there's 2 pillars? It's God's legs. And further proof of that, if you can handle it, is that on top of those pillars are 2 big pomegranates with seed in them. You know, this is just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor. That it's a picture of God's testicles by which he makes oath. Because the word testify comes from the word testicle. Because if you can see this with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They all made an oath, and the person that made them swear said, "Put your hand under my thigh and swear to me." That means hold the testicles and swear by my seed. That's why there's pomegranates on top of the 2 walking pillars. Because God walks, he moves. And he has pillar of fire and smoke. If you can handle that, good. Then it will make this part much easier. So, we have the pillar of cloud walked and then stood. Now in Exodus 40, we saw this, that the people followed that cloud and smoke and fire wherever it went. Yes? Okay, easy. Everybody knows that one. Now, go to 2 Kings 2. 2 Kings 2:11. This is a drawing I did a long time ago about Elijah. This is called the spirit of Elijah. I know you can't see it real well, but here's Elijah being sucked up by a tornado, and here's Elisha way down here looking up, and then there's a chariot and horses made out of fire. 2 Kings 2:11. Then it came about as they were going along and talking, that behold, a chariot of fire and horses of fire, which separated the 2 of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind to heaven. And Elisha saw it and cried out, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. And he saw him no more. So, what took Elijah up? It was the cloud of God's chariot. It wasn't the chariot of people, it was the chariot of God. And this is what it looked like. It looked like 2 things. It looked like a chariot and horses made out of fire and a giant whirlwind or a tornado. Right. Together. But both of them spin around. Yes? Now, why? Why would it describe the chariot of God as a chariot and horses of fire and a tornado, a whirlwind? Okay, let's look more at this.
Was the whirlwind a fire?
Probably the whirlwind was made out of fire, probably, and smoke. In other words, this is exactly what they were following in the wilderness. This pillar of fire and smoke. But somehow it looked like horses and chariot made out of fire. Weird, huh?
Sometimes clouds look like.
This is a moving, spinning, giant thing made out of fire. It wasn't still like a cloud. A cloud just kind of changes very, very slowly. This is a thing that's moving, and it went, picked them up, and it took off.
God himself.
Yes. All right, let's get more understanding about this and see why they followed this priest with a machteh in the wilderness. And whenever God moved, they moved, and whenever he sat still, they sat still. 1 Chronicles 28:18. Now, if you don't know this one, you're going to love this. This is one of my favorite verses in the entire Bible. 1 Chronicles 28:18. It changed my life when I read it. I read it about 8 times. I kept reading it and reading it and reading it. Looked at the Hebrew, checked it over and over and over again to see if it really said what it said. It just changed everything for me. Verse 18, 28:18. It's talking about all the gold and silver and bronze that David collected to build the temple. Verse 18, for the altar of incense, refined gold by weight, and gold for the model of the chariot. The model of the chariot, that is the cherubim, that spread out their wings and covered the ark of the covenant of the Lord. So what is the ark? A model or a picture of this. The chariot that God rides around on. That's what the ark of the covenant is. It is a picture of the chariot of God that Israel followed in the wilderness.
I saw that in the vision.
Whoa.
You saw that in the vision. That's right. I remember. That's right. Psalm 104. Psalm 104. I love that verse. Psalm 104, verse 3. This is, it says in here, Lord my God, you're very great, you're clothed with splendor and majesty.
Amen.
Covering yourself with light like a cloak, stretching out heavens like a curtain. He lays the beams of his upper chambers in the waters. Now look at this. He makes the clouds his chariot.
Woo.
He makes the Anan his chariot.
Wow.
He walks on the wings of the wind, the wings of the Ruach. He makes the winds his messengers and flaming fire his ministers. So here it says the cloud is his chariot. Get it?
Yes.
The cloud is his chariot.
Yes.
Let's go to Isaiah 19. Isaiah 19, verse 1. The oracle concerning Egypt. Behold, the Lord is riding on a fast cloud. There it is. The Lord is riding on a swift cloud. What's the cloud? His chariot. That's why he's riding on it. But what does that look like? What does it look like? So far we have that it looks like a pillar of smoke and a pillar of fire, a whirlwind or a tornado, horses and chariot of fire. What moves the chariot? No, I mean like a regular chariot, like a real chariot. What moves the chariot? Really? That's going to move the chariot? It ain't going to move if it doesn't have wheels. Wheels. That's why it's called a chariot. Because the Ark of the Covenant has wheels. But they're not the wheels you think. They're the rings on the side that hold the poles. And the poles were this big. So that means the rings were this big. They're not little tiny things like a shower curtain. They're big and they're made out of gold. They got a big old pole going through them, which is the Spirit of the living God. And so those big giant wheels are right next to the cherubim. Right next to the cherubim. Here, by the way, is the cherubim in the Holy of Holies. 15 feet tall, 15 feet wide. That's how big the Holy of Holies is. So each cherub is 7.5 feet wide, 15 feet tall. And they're just like the cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant, and they have 4 heads and 4 wings. 2 wings like this, 2 wings like this.
4 heads each?
4 heads each. Go to Ezekiel chapter 1. I'll show you this. So Ezekiel saw the chariot coming, and he described it in great detail. And it freaks people out because they don't know what they're reading. But it's very, very simple. Ezekiel 1. You know, it's going to be hard to follow in the Bible. It came about in the 30th year of the first of the 4th month. Heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. Verse 4. I looked, and behold, a storm wind was coming from the north, a great cloud, and anon, with fire flashing forth from it. So what is he seeing? He's seeing the, quote, glory cloud coming with both cloud or smoke and fire. And it's coming from the north, flashing forth from it continually, a bright light all around it. And in the middle of it, something like glowing metal in the midst of the fire. So when you said, did that tornado, does it have fire? Obviously so. In the middle of it, something like glowing fire. And within it were figures resembling 4 living beings. And this is what they looked like. They had human form. Each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. And their legs were straight. Their feet were like a calf's hoof. So that's why they have calves' hooves, calves' legs. And they were gleaming like burnished bronze. Under the wings of their 4 sides were human hands. As for the faces and wings of the 4 of them, their wings touched one another, and their faces did not turn when they moved. They went straight ahead. So they're either going this way, or they drop their wings and go this way, or they drop their wings and go this way, or they drop their wings and go this way.
Wow.
They're coming from the north. Their wings touched each other. Their faces did not turn when they moved. Now, this is what the Ark of the Covenant looked like. It had it had like 2 cherubim across from each other, and their wings were spread out so that it didn't matter which direction the ark went. You got a face going that way, that way, that way, and that way. And their wings are out this way, and their wings are down this way. 2 sets of wings.
So they're always looking.
So they're always looking in the direction that God's going. Their wings touched one another, their faces did not turn when they moved, each went straight forward. As for the 4 in their faces, each had the face of a man, all 4 had the face of a lion on the right, and the face of the bull on the left, and all had the face of an eagle. That's what their faces looked like. Their wings were spread out above, each had 2 touching each other, and 2 covering their bodies. Now this is the actual, real chariot of God. And Ezekiel saw it and tried to describe this crazy thing. Way more description than anybody else. Look at verse 13. In the midst of the living beings, that's the 4 creatures that are represented on the ark by 2, not 4, 2. In the midst of the living beings, there was something that looked like burning coals of fire. There's the machteh. Now listen to me. On the Ark of the Covenant is the kaporet, the mercy seat. Yes? Here's the mercy seat. Where does God show up? On top of the mercy seat, in between what? The cherubim that are facing each other. God shows up there on top. He said, I'm going to show up. I'm going to appear in the smoke, in the cloud, on top of the kaporet. Because it's a picture of this. It says it here. That on top, or in the midst, in the middle of the living beings, there was something that looked like burning coals of fire. Like torches darting back and forth among the living beings. The fire was bright and the lightning was flashing from the fire. Now, how would you show that in a little model? I mean, how do you build a model of that? Well, there's 2 models. There's the Ark of the Covenant and the machteh.
Oh,
The fire pan. Right. Now, as I looked, the living beings, behold, verse 15, there was 1 wheel on the earth beside the living beings. And then it says there were 4 wheels for each of the 4 living beings. That's the Ark of the Covenant as a model of that, because you have the 2 cherubim on the 2 sides and 2 pole holders on each side, 2 rings on each side, 4 ring holders. Yes? Those are the wheels. Those are the wheels. And then it says this, it says that in those wheels there were eyes all over the wheels. And they were huge. Kind of like a gyroscope, a wheel inside a wheel. North-south, east-west, just like the cherubim. North-south, east-west. And so you got a wheel inside a wheel, and there's eyes all over them. When the pole holders, what goes through the poles? What goes through the pole holders? Sorry. What goes through the pole holders? What goes through the pole holders? The rings. That's the Spirit of God. Going in whatever direction the Spirit of God goes. Because, that's what you carry the ark with. Does that make sense? Who walks the ark? Who carries the ark? The priests, which are a picture of the chariot of God.
And the priests are like the horses.
Yes, exactly. And the priests are like are pictured by horses of fire. Yes. Very good. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's go to, well, that's good. So now you can begin to understand when people say, oh, we just want to follow the glory cloud. What does that mean? Now you should be starting to get some idea what that means. Picture the priest with the machteh. And wherever that priest goes, you know where he's going. Where's he going? Where's he going? Come on, where's he going? Into the Holy of Holies. You know he's going here, 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 and then here. To bring that fire into the Holy of Holies, to put the incense on it, fill the glory cloud into the Holy of Holies. Why? Because that's where God lives. Who can go in there? Nobody. Except the high priest. Nobody. This is my opinion. You can believe me or not believe me, but I don't care what anybody says. I don't believe the glory cloud of God will ever show up on earth in a church or anywhere else until the day of the Lord. Because I'm about to show you why I say that. Because that is that's God's aloneness. That's his aloneness. He does not share that with us. Yes.
I understand that nobody can go all that. Didn't you say long time ago in a teaching that somebody went and didn't die? Was that?
Yeah, the high priest. The high priest went before God every year and didn't die. But it's the only one.
Yeah.
The only person.
Excuse me.
Yes.
When we pray, we could say we enter the Holy of Holies covered by the blood of the Lamb.
Yeah, okay. Hold on.
Let's go.
We say when we pray,
Yeah, when we pray.
we go before the Holy of Holies covered by the blood of the Lamb. We're going to get to that. I'm going to also give you an understanding of what that means. We're going to get to that. Now, here's the next thing. This is the big one. This is the one I really want to teach. This is the thing that just lights me up this week. And it's this. The cloud is God's aloneness that he shares with nobody. And nobody will see it. No, let me say it this way. Nobody will experience it on this earthly plane. What did it say that how did Ezekiel see the glory of God? How did he see it? It said it in verse 1 of Ezekiel 1. Say it again. Nope.
Vision?
Right. As a vision. It wasn't real. It wasn't real. It was a vision. In other words, it's like, I saw it coming from the north and I saw this stuff. It didn't really happen. It was a vision. It's not real. So if anybody tells you that we were having a church service and I've got video of the smoke of God showed up and the glory cloud appeared, don't believe them. This is my opinion. I'll show you why I say this. Let's go to 2 Samuel 22:12. 2 Samuel 22:12. And by the way, I've done all the research on the internet. And all these videos of people said they saw this and they saw that. And I'm looking and, oh no, I ain't seeing it.
And it wasn't man-made.
What wasn't man-made?
Like the glory of the Lord, or the cloud of God.
Right, the cloud.
The glory of
2 Samuel 22:12. God made darkness a sukkah around him. Like at Sukkot, we build the sukkah as a picture of God's presence. He made darkness a sukkah around him, a mass of waters, thick clouds in the sky. From the brightness before him, coals of fire were kindled, exactly like what Ezekiel saw. So, what is God surrounded by in this verse? Darkness. 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 Choshech. And it says that clouds and, well, look at verse 11. Verse 10. He bowed the heavens also and came down with thick darkness, Choshech, under his feet, and he rode on a cherub and he flew. That's the chariot. And he appeared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness a sukkah around him, mass of waters, thick clouds of the sky. So what's like surrounding God? Darkness and clouds. Good. Darkness and clouds. Go to Job chapter 22. Job 22. Verse 14. Clouds are a hiding place for him, so that he, God, cannot see. And he walks on the vault of heaven. We'll read that again. It sounds weird. Clouds on a note. Clouds are a hiding place for him, so that he can't see, or he can't be seen. It's the same thing in Hebrew. It's the same word. I will appear. I will see. I will be seen over the ark cover in a cloud. I want you to close your eyes and try to put yourself in the place of the high priest. You've walked carrying the machteh and the silver vessel with the incense, and you walk it in that weird path, that hallway. You come into the Holy of Holies. You have to, I don't know if you set down the stuff in between the poles, or if you step over the poles to set it down between the poles, but it's there. It's on the ground. You take the incense and you put it on the coals, and it fills the room with this cloud. Can you see?
No.
Can you see clearly?
No.
Can you see?
No.
How are you going to get back out? How do you get back out? Because, guys, open your eyes. Here's the hard part. You have to back out of God's presence.
Always.
The priest had to back out.
You can't give me your back.
You can't give God your back.
Never.
So he can't see. And I guess you gotta step over the poles, and then you gotta back out, turn, and back out that hallway, and then back out of that holy place. That's hard.
But you can feel it.
Yeah, you can feel.
Do you leave the pan there?
Yes, you leave the pan in front of God, making the smoke, so that when you come in with the blood of the bullock and the blood of the Azazel, the goat, it's still filled with smoke. Why? Because that's God's presence, and we are not supposed to see him. And he's not supposed to. There's supposed to be a separation. You know, everybody wants to know what's God saying, what's God doing, I can't see him. It's supposed to be like that. There's supposed to be a separation between God and man so that we can't see what he's doing and he can't really see us very well. There's supposed to be a separation. Because he is surrounded by thick darkness and fire. I know it sounds weird. This is what I believe. I'll show you more. God hides in the cloud. Job 38:9. Job 38:9. This is God talking. When I made a cloud, verse 8. Who enclosed the sea with doors? When bursting forth, it went out from the womb. The sea came out of the womb. When I made a cloud, its garment. The cloud is the garment for the sea. And thick darkness, its swaddling band. That's what, when a baby is born, comes out of the womb, you put swaddling cloths on it, which were made from the used undergarments of the priest. And so that is a picture of thick darkness that surrounds God. I placed boundaries on it. I set up open doors. I said, you come this far but no farther. So what he's saying is he took, this is hard to explain. What is heaven made out of? You should know immediately. Nope. What? Say it loud. Good. Water. Mayim, water. Shamayim, heavens. And it says in Genesis 1, God took the waters above, he took the waters, and he separated them from the waters above and the waters below. The waters below were earth, and the waters above is heaven. They're both made out of water. Yes? So what he did was he took some of his, I don't know what to call it, a swirling cloud that's around him, and wrapped the sea in that as a picture of his presence. Can you live in the sea?
No. So what's your...
Neither can you live in God. And in heaven, we can't live in front of God. We can't do that. We would blow up. He would burn us up. Or we drown. Or both.
You can get close, but not too close.
What do you think the cloud in heaven is made out of? Water. Water. So you might burn drown. Like if you came before God, I can imagine Nadav and Abihu not just burning up, but burn drowning.
When
Wow.
a pitch and a...
Yes.
Like a baby inside the womb, it's
Yes.
surrounded by the water.
Like a baby inside the womb surrounded by the amniotic fluid, the water. That's right. And the woman's water breaks and out comes the baby. Same thing with God sharing some of that, whatever that is, that glory,
Wow.
with the sea, with the oceans, with the waters on earth.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to show you why I read that verse. Psalm 18. This kind of brings that back in and makes it make sense. Psalm 18, 11 through 12. Verse 10. He rode on a cherub and flew, and he sped upon the wings of the wind. Now, you know what that's talking about, yes?
Yes.
He made darkness his hiding place. Why would God need to hide?
Because we have to be separate from him.
Yes, because we got to be separate from him. He is not going to show himself to us. He's not.
That's protection.
I don't care what anybody says. He's not going to show himself to humans.
But Moses,
Yes. He made darkness his hiding place, his sukkah around him. Darkness of waters, that's the dark cloud. Thick clouds of the skies. From the brightness, now it says brightness. Isn't that weird? It's talking about darkness, and it says brightness. From the brightness before him past his thick clouds. See what I'm saying? So at the same time you have darkness, you have brightness. Now, this is probably the most important verse I'm going to share with you today. That the cloud is full of light. The cloud of God's presence is full of light. You've seen that in the pictures. You have Mate, you have fire, put the stuff on it, smoke, cloud. The fire is inside the cloud, right? Same thing with what the prophets saw. They saw this giant tornado, only it's got light, fire inside of it. Yes? Okay, this is the pictures. This is the pictures. It's a shadow, but it's light. Colossians 2, 16 through 17 says that God gave the kosher laws, the new moon, the Sabbath, and the festivals as a shadow cast by Yeshua. That's our light.
Amen.
You don't have to see God.
No, Judaism is
Yes, Judaism, the pictures that are in Judaism is the glory of God.
Amen.
That is what we follow. That is God walking with the Machte that we follow. That's what Judaism is. That's why Judaism is called halakha. The quote laws of Judaism is called halakha, which means to walk. This is our walk with God.
Amen.
You don't have to have some glory thing.
not only that, if we walk and if the Lord sees our heels, he'll talk to us.
If we walk and the Lord sees our heels,
He'll talk to
He'll
us.
talk to us. That's too deep for me, but I think you're right. Okay, so this is probably the most important verse here. I'm going to tie it together, don't worry. Psalm 18, that says that in that cloud is both things, darkness and light. Yes? That's the presence of God. Psalm 97. Psalm 97, verse 2. Clouds and thick darkness surround him. That's it. Clouds and thick darkness surround him. Now this is God's aloneness that he shares with no one. And the Adon Olam, Adon Olam Asher Malach, B'terem kol yitzir nivra, le'et nasa v'chepzo kol, azai melech shemo yikra. One of the verses of that says, no one shares your aloneness. Your aloneness. Every believer that I've ever met wants the same thing. We all want the same thing. We want to meet God. We want to see God. We want God to visit us. We want God to be with us, right? And it can happen. It ain't going to happen. But what is going to happen is, if he's walking east and you're walking east, everything will be great because you're right behind him. If he's walking north, you're walking north, following that Machte, you're going to hear from him, you're going to see him, you're going to feel him, everything will be cool. But what we're not going to have is what most believers are looking for, which is, I want the glory. It's not going to happen. It's not. But you know what? We're going to know what God is doing. We're going to know what he's saying, what he's doing, where he's going, and why. And when. That's the big one, the when. Okay, now here's the other thing. The cloud of incense is the prayer. I think I've nailed it down pretty good.
Very good.
Yeah, let's go to Luke 1. This is interesting. I never saw it before. I'm just going to look at one verse with this. The cloud of, two verses. The cloud of incense is prayer. The Jewish people knew this, by the way, which I didn't know until I read this verse. I thought it was true. but now I know it's true. Luke chapter 1, verse 10. Verse 9. According to the custom of the priestly office, he was chosen. This is talking about Zechariah, the father of John. He was chosen by lot to enter the temple of the Lord and burn incense. Where was the incense burned? In the temple normally. Not on Yom Kippur. Normally. Really?
In the Holy of Holies.
No. Only the Holy of Holies you can only go in once a year, and it's only the high priest, and it's only on Yom
Young
Kippur.
people,
Is it near the altar?
Which altar?
The big one?
No.
The big one. And young people, huh?
Oh, I just assumed you all knew this. You don't know where the incense is burned every day?
In the Holy of Holies.
No, you can't go in the Holy of Holies.
Outside.
You're going to go, oh yeah, the altar of incense. In the holy place, not in the Holy of Holies. I couldn't hear you.
That's outside,
Is that
right?
the inner court or the outer court?
Let's see.
It's not a court at all.
See out there,
It's
right?
not a court at all.
And out there.
It's not a court at all.
And out there.
I thought you guys knew. The court is out here. Hold on. The court is out here. This is the holy place that the priests go in every single day. And here's the Holy of Holies that is only gone in one time a year by the high priest. The altar of incense is right here in the holy place. Every day, the priest would fill the holy place with that cloud. But we're talking about this one because we're in Leviticus 16 about Yom Kippur. But daily, this was filled probably less effectively with incense because it's a bigger space. So that's what it's talking about here in Luke chapter 1. Zechariah has gone into the holy place to the altar of incense. It was his turn by lot, and he was putting the incense on the altar. Therefore, what is he carrying? The machteh. He's carrying the fire pan. According to the custom of the priestly office, verse 9, he was chosen by lot to enter the temple of the Lord and to burn incense. And the whole multitude of the people were in prayer outside at the hour of what? Incense. Why are they praying at the hour of incense? Because incense is a picture of prayer. And the Jews knew this.
Well, is it because incense is sweet and prayer is supposed to be sweet as well?
Sure, that incense is sweet, like it said in Leviticus, and prayer is sweet to God. Sure, that's beautiful. All right, Revelation chapter 5. There's 3 passages in Revelation that say this. Basically, let's look at Revelation 5, verse 8. When he had taken the book, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp and golden machtot, full of incense, which are, the incense are the prayers of the holy ones. The Jews knew this because at the hour of incense is when you pray. Make sense?
Yeah.
That's why incense is a picture of prayer. Yes.
Is it every hour? Every third hour? Or?
No, it's not every third hour. It's 2 times a day, 6 o'clock and 3 o'clock. That's all. All right. So you have a machteh full of fire, full of coals. Get the incense, fills up the holy place. What is that a picture of? Prayer. But what else did I tell you it's a picture of? God's presence, the glory of God. Therefore, now listen to this. God does not come here. We go there through prayer. And that's it. It is not a two-way street.
Right.
It is not. God has given us Judaism to learn how to get there.
Not to enter the
Yes, how to get there in that place where he is alone and he does not share with anybody because he's wrapped in darkness, wrapped in hiddenness. And that's how it's supposed to be. So don't be weird. Don't feel weird that, I don't feel him. I can't connect. It's all right. That's how it's supposed to be. It's all right.
This is Judaism.
And I'm saying this to you because I'm saying it to me. Because Eileen, she has all these visions, and I saw this and I saw that. I'm like, I don't see anything. I can't touch. I can't feel it. But the truth is, she didn't get it up in there either. She sees visions, just like Ezekiel did. Ezekiel didn't see the real thing. He didn't experience the real thing. He saw a vision. Okay. And then there's another one in Revelation 8 says the same thing. That incense was added to the prayers of the holy ones. That's pretty cool, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Incense was added to the prayers of the holy ones in that mosque. Okay, now
Make it sweeter, God. Make our prayer sweeter.
yeah, to make it sweeter and to add to more people getting up there to pray. Which reminds me, you need to come on Wednesday night to my house to pray. You need to come on Wednesday night to pray. You need to do it. You need to do whatever you need to do it. Because God is not going to build this group of people walking with God if we don't pray, if we don't have that incense. It's just not going to happen. It's not. Not to say anything more about that. All right, Daniel chapter 7, verse 13 says this. I saw the Son of Man coming with clouds, and he was presented before the Ancient of Days. I saw the Son of Man coming with the clouds, and he was presented before the Ancient of Days. Who did the Son of Man come with? Clouds. What is the clouds? God's presence.
He hides in the clouds.
Yes. And he walks in that cloud. All those, multiplied millions of believers love the verse in Matthew 24 that says, he's coming with the clouds. It puts a new twist on it, doesn't it? How did he come in the Old Testament? He walked in this giant pillar of fire and cloud. It's going to happen again. It doesn't mean he's coming with multiplied millions of angels. That's not what he's talking. He's going to come with the, quote, glory cloud. The kavod, the pillar of fire and smoke. That's what's going to happen again. Go to Matthew 24. Hopefully, you can read this differently now. Matthew 24, verse 30. Now, don't get me wrong. He is going to show up with billions of angels. He is. And billions of righteous people. But that's not the glory cloud. The glory cloud is him and him alone. His aloneness. And nobody gets to be part of that. Matthew 24:30. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming with clouds of the sky, with power and great kavod, glory. That's the glory cloud. It's going to show up. Yeshua's going to show up like he did with Ezekiel, like he did with Israel in the desert, with this giant tornado chariot fire and cloud thing. That's how he's going to come. Because at that point, you're in the kingdom. And he's going to restore the kingdom when finally all the pictures are restored. So we have one more thing that's going to tie it all together. Matthew 17:5. This is an illustration I did for the TLV, the Tree of Life Bible. This is Yeshua, this is Elijah, this is Moses. In Matthew 17 is what they call the Transfiguration. Just means a change, like a metamorphosis. Matthew 17:5. While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed what? A bright cloud overshadowed them. That doesn't bother you? A bright cloud overshadowed them. Look at me. You still not hear me. A bright cloud overshadowed them. How is that possible? A light bulb overshadowed them. A lit light bulb, a strobe light overshadowed them. Does that make sense? That doesn't bother you?
Maybe it stood over.
How can it overshadow? The word shadow is in that word. The word shadow is in that word.
Because he hides in the shadow.
Yes, but just physically, how can a bright thing overshadow anything? Shadow is shade.
Yeah. But
If the sun comes over you, is it going to overshadow you? No, it makes no sense. And I read this for years. I did the same thing you did. I read it, but I didn't read it. The word shadow is in the Greek there. That a bright cloud, that means it has light in it, right? Shadowed them. Does that bother you? Does that bother you?
Yeah. Well, what does it say in the Hebrew and the Greek?
That's what it says. Exactly what I said in the English. A bright cloud overshadowed. It is the word overshadowed them. It's pretty good translation.
Why would it bother you?
Bright things don't shadow anything.
It's like-
Bright things cast a shadow.
But if it's light,
You're not thinking.
Yeah.
Here's a light.
Yeah.
Is the light shadow overshadowing my hand? That's why it bothers me.
it's a contradiction.
Can I say something
Yes.
real quick? You said a bright cloud,
That's
which
what
is
it
bright.
says.
But see, a cloud is something that covers. And it says a
So then-
shadow. A
then how
shadow
can it be
means his
bright?
presence, which covers.
Then how
which
can it be
means-
bright?
Well, it's bright, but maybe if you look into more of the definition of shadow, and maybe it has more than just the word shade.
It doesn't. It's the word sel in Hebrew, which means a shadow or shade.
Shade. Well,
It's
it
all-
shades you, but yet it's still bright.
Impossible. This and Psalm 18 is the thing I'm trying to get across to you.
It says maybe it's to show that we're not transparent.
That doesn't even make sense. I'm just trying to make sense of it, mentally. Just like, what does it mean? A bright cloud. Here's a light. A bright cloud overshadowed them. That makes no sense whatsoever unless it makes perfect sense because it's Judaism. Now, I taught this a few weeks ago. I think it was 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. 1 Samuel 10:2. Saul went to look for the donkeys
Oh yeah.
that his dad lost, remember? And he looked all over for the donkeys. And one of the places he went, where he was told they were, was Seltzach. Seltzach. Sel in Hebrew is shadow. Tzach is brightness. Bright shadow. Seltzach means bright shadow. Literally means bright shadow. How can you have a bright shadow? Because of Colossians 2. The new moon, the kosher laws, the Sabbath, and the festivals are what?
Shadow.
Shadows. Cast by Yeshua. Cast by Yeshua. Shadows cast by Yeshua. It's a bright shadow. It is the glory of God. Because that's what came over Yeshua and Moses and Elijah was the glory of God. Only it says it's a dark cloud, a bright cloud that overshadowed them. So it's just like the Makte and just like the pillar that they followed. It's a picture of Judaism.
Amen.
God's presence is the shadow.
Amen.
It's a bright shadow, which makes zero sense. Does it? I mean, it makes no sense to me, but that's what it is. It is a bright shadow. The new moon, the kosher laws, the Sabbath, and the festivals are shadows cast by Yeshua, and you look at them and you see Yeshua. You see the glory of God. You see the brightest thing there is. So that's why the shadow is bright. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
Yeshua is bright.
Yes.
It makes
And-
perfect sense if you understand what Judaism is.
It makes perfect sense. Two things. If you understand what Judaism is, and if you understand that the Makte has fire in it that makes smoke.
Yes.
Or else it makes no sense. The pictures are bright shadows. This is why we do Judaism. So we can reflect. So we can shadow. So we can reflect. So we can match. So we can pair the glory of God. Whatever that is. At whatever time it is. Because it ain't the same all the time. Sometimes God's really ticked. And sometimes God's crying. And sometimes God is moaning. Sometimes he's dancing. And sometimes he's just freaking out, joyful. And in order to match that, you got to do the pictures, the shadows. Does that make sense? I know this is a little esoteric,
No.
but hopefully you'll at least get one thing out of it. You need to read much more carefully. When you read the words, you really need to read the words. Because you've read this 1,000 times probably, and you never saw it. A dark cloud, a bright cloud overshadowed. Impossible. Unless the shadow is bright. Unless the cloud, which is overshadowing, is bright. The shadow is bright. The shadow is bright.
Well, in physics, it's true.
In physics, what is true?
Well, like radio waves and light waves, there's like, the regular light we see, and then there's light waves above and below that we don't see. Our vision only is limited to a certain span of light.
Again, way deeper than me. I can't follow that. I mean, if you just look at it at a very logical, simple level, you cannot have a bright cloud overshadowing something. It's impossible. You can have a dark cloud overshadowing, but you can't have a bright cloud overshadowing. Or else there's no shadow. This doesn't make shadow, does it? Does this make shadow? Like from here, does this put out shadow? So it makes no sense. Because that's what it's saying. It's saying it's a bright cloud overshadowing. Not possible. You could say a bright cloud hovered over. You could say a bright cloud came over them. You could say a bright cloud glowed. You could say a bright cloud cast light. But you can't say a bright cloud shadowed or darkened or shaded something. Makes no sense. Yes.
Well, I don't think they're really, I'm saying if you do even a more thorough study, the word is what it means. It's not that it's actually casting a shadow, but it's a bright.
It's not casting a shadow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The brightness, he's overshadowing us, covering us because he's a cloud. He covers his people, and it's like your child. You have your child, and you're covering him. You're protecting him. You've overshadowed him.
No,
but
see,
then,
you went to the word shadow. Now.
yes, but shadow.
Protect? Yeah, I'll give you that. Would you say protect and cover over,
Yeah,
cover
but
over?
but
Yeah.
see, but there's a brightness. But it's not really meaning shadow.
but it does, because that's what the Greek says. There was 5, 6, 7, 8 different words that could have been used here. But God chose to use the word overshadow. And I think it's there absolutely for a reason. Because every time the cloud, the quote, glory cloud shows up, what is God wrapped in?
Darkness.
Darkness and light. So think about it. What words would you use to communicate that light is also shadow at the same time?
Well, maybe like you said, darkness. You said there's a darkness in the cloud, and you said that what is it? A swaddling it was to covering his people, to swaddle, and it covers in the darkness. Because if you cover somebody with a swaddle and all the way, then they're in a dark place.
Right, and it's the same, just the opposite.
Inside,
This is saying just the opposite. How do you communicate swaddling somebody with light and it's a shadow? And I'm going to say this, I believe this was put here by God because the shadows, the new moon, the kosher laws, the Sabbaths, and the festivals, basically Judaism, are the shadow cast by Yeshua, but it's not a shadow. It's light.
Yeshua's the light. He can
Right.
overcome darkness.
There's no. I know you're having a hard time getting your minds wrapped around this because
I'm sorry, what was the scripture again?
you're not looking at it as a very, very simple thing. What scripture?
The one we're talking about, Matthew, what's the?
I'm sorry?
No, I got it, 17:5.
I'm sad that some of you missed this because Saltzach means bright shadow, and there's no other way to translate it. Can you have a bright shadow? Is there any such thing as a bright shadow?
No.
No, just literally, physically, on the physical, natural, earthly plane. Is there such a thing as a bright shadow? No, that's what Judaism is. It's a bright shadow. That's what the glory of God is. Yes.
Well, thinking backwards, I don't know if this actually parallels, but if you think about if you are in
Thinking backwards, if you
if
think
you are
about
in an enclosed
think about being in an
let's say
enclosed
you go
space.
inside a box.
Go inside a box.
There's no light anywhere.
No
There's
light.
Coming through with the pressure. You see nothing. It's just
You
dark.
see nothing. It's just
There's
darkness.
no shadows. You can't see your shadow.
That's right. There's no shadow.
But once light is introduced,
Once light is
the
introduced,
shadow,
the shadow
is
shows
also-
up.
Oh, okay.
That's correct.
There you go.
But that's even not what I'm saying. Even that is not what I'm
That's
saying.
why I said it may not actually parallel this.
It doesn't. Even that's not what I'm saying.
I'm
I'm gonna do whatever it takes to nail this down.
No, I know what you're saying.
You know what?
Yeah.
It could be used as a noun or a verb. And if it's used as a verb, then it's an actual action and it's not a noun, which is an actual thing.
Not true.
That's what it says here.
Not in Hebrew. In Greek, that is true, but not in Hebrew. In Hebrew, there are, thousands of words that are both a noun and a
And
verb.
that's what this is.
Yes, it's a noun and a verb. In Greek, it's not. So, if you just look at it in its very plain, simple sense, you cannot have what it says in this verse. Just a plain, simple sense. You can't have a bright cloud overshadow something. You can have a bright cloud causing a shadow, things casting a shadow from that brightness.
There you go. That's
But
what I
with-
was going to say. That brightness.
Yeah. But that's not what it's saying. It's saying that the brightness is itself
Yeah.
shadow, shadowing, like you said, like overshadowing, like protecting,
Yes.
hovering. But it's not just protecting her, it's shadow. And I believe God used that word very specifically because it's the same word, at least shadows, the same word in Colossians that describes Judaism as a shadow of Yeshua, cast by Yeshua.
And maybe that's what it is, because
That's it is what it is.
Yes, you know, well, so really, there's what it is.
That is what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
That-
absolutely.
then there's
It's a
what it is.
bright shadow.
And
Salsa.
Yeshua Yamashiach is that bright shadow, because he says he's the light of the world.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So he's both the brightness. Now I can't see because I looked at this one. It's both the brightness and the shadow at the same
So
time.
now we know, right there,
Now we know.
right there.
That's right.
These are verses
I
to
explained it good.
Yes.
Yes, it's also the different versions and maybe.
Yeah, that does make a little difference. But I hope you can see that the whole story was told to communicate that it's very, very different from let's follow let's follow the column of smoke and fire. It's not that. That's God's aloneness that he shares with nobody. And that's the chariot that God rides around on, which is Judaism.
Hallelujah.
Which is Judaism. Okay, that's the best I can do. I'm exhausted. So let's pray. Abba, thank you that you share with nobody your presence. You share with nobody your aloneness, your swaddled, alone, hidden, concealedness that nobody gets to see or feel or experience or understand that. Only you. But you share with us your glory, your kavod. Thank you that Yeshua is the high priest, and he carries that machteh, and the angels carry their machtot, and you fill your presence. You fill your presence with smoke and fire. And I ask, Lord, that you would, as we do more and more of your ways, that you would give us more and more understanding of yourself so we can know you. Not know everything, just know you. In the name of Yeshua.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.